Welcome everyone, it's RoboHobo. Season 11's newest Apex Legend, Ashe, is here, and after waiting until I had a hefty amount of playtime on her, I was able to put together the perfect pro guide on Ashe. And by the end of this video, you too should not only know how to use Ashe's ability at the highest level, but also learn how to counter Ashe, as well as what not to do and how to avoid common mistakes that I see even higher level players doing. In fact, soon, the pro scene will be entirely an arms race on who can best utilize this video. So grab your notepad, sit back, and pay attention, because this is how to actually become an Ashe pro.
You've given me some very valuable information to put it to use.
First, let's quickly see how Ashe stacks up in the current meta pool of Apex Legends. Overall, I think Ashe stacks up well. Ashe's skill set is very versatile, containing abilities for mobility, disengaging and re-engaging, tracking enemies, initiating attacks, as well as slowing down enemy attacks, and the very valuable ability of a quick escape all at once. The versatility can be great for pub stomping, as well as making a difference in a ranked match. However, because of this versatility, she does lack that more specialized playstyle that some of the other legends can provide. So in short, if you're looking for that more exact playstyle, Ashe might not be the fit for you. This does not mean Ashe is bad, on the contrary. Currently, Ashe stacks up as one of the best overall legends in the current meta of Season 11. Let's start with Ashe's passive, Marked for Death. Many early guides I saw just read off the Meet Ashe trailer and moved on. But this passive actually has a ton of uses and easily her best ability if it remains how it currently is. Which, to be frank, I wouldn't be surprised if it got nerfed, because it's strong. First, you can ping enemy death boxes you come across to mark surviving attackers. This does let you get the jump on enemy locations for rotations or attacking/defending situations. This can be great, but keep in mind that it does notify your enemy when you ping them. If you have more than one box, make sure that you save them for later pings, as they can become valuable later and only pinged once. The more powerful part of the passive, however, is actually the fact that death boxes stay highlighted on Ashe's map for 200 seconds. With coordination, thought, and communication, this can be huge. And right now, I'm going to go into great depth on how you can exactly do this yourself and take this to the next level. For starters, if you see that an enemy death marker has appeared on your minimap, turn to it and open up your full map. You can see exactly where this is regardless of where it happened on the map, and you can even ping it for your teammates. You can use this information to get an idea where different fights are happening on the map to either avoid or attack. In ranked situations, this can be used to map out enemy locations. That way you can make the best choices for great endgame rotations. Another great tip while using this ability is that you should not only remember where enemies are dying at all of the areas on the map, but note where enemies are not dying as well. Just some of the information you can get from this is 1. Where other Ashe teams might be rotating to the death boxes. 2. Where teams might be rotating away from since their teammates are going down. 3. How many death boxes appear tells you how many remains of the enemy squad. This can be used in conjunction with the squad count and the kill feed. Once you start getting a better idea of remembering where people are dying and being able to predict those rotations, you can actually even take it up a notch and predict the most likely rotation after the first rotation based on the storm circle. For a quick example, if I notice that there are teams dying here and here on my mini-map, I can predict that they're going to be rotating to these locations based on where the circle is here. A few common mistakes that you should avoid is 1. Simply just running straight at the death boxes on your mini-map thinking that it'll be an easy third party. Unlike when you hear gunfire going off, this is typically happening after the fight, and teams will be ready by the time you get there if the location is not right beside you. 2. Trying to remember more than you can handle. At the end of the day, what is most important is where it's right in front of you right now. Don't get lost in trying to remember every single detail, and things also will get easier towards the end of the game, so try to pay more attention on your map and locations of the enemies when it's a little simpler, when there's less of them at the end of those games. And number 3, don't be afraid to be in your full map. As Ashe, you'll be in the map more than any legend that has been in the game prior, especially if you're trying to track people for those crucial high-level ranked end zones and those just big brain mapping out plays. Wow, that was all just for the passive, and we haven't even gotten into the super fun tactical and alt yet. We have so much more to go over. Let's go quickly. Let's move on to the tactical Arc Snare. For this, Ashe throws out a slow-moving snare that is in a perfect straight line with no drop-off. It lands on the first surface it hits and tethers the first or closest enemy who comes across it, dealing 20 damage or 10 damage to health. While tethered, an enemy still has full movement and firing capabilities, as long as they stay within the effect radius of the Arc Snare. But if an enemy tries to move out of the range, their movement speed will be slowed to a crawl. Struggling against the pull will make it break sooner than simply staying in the area of effect, but you will be punished for doing so. Sure, at first glance, this is a great ability for getting that guy just trying to run away, but in reality, it does so much more. Let's take a second and look a bit deeper into the Arc Snare stats. 10 damage to health or 20 damage to shield. The radius is 4 meters. Cooldown of 25 seconds. The snare lasts about 3 seconds. And it lasts about 5 seconds if no target gets snared. Let's go deeper into that last part. Last up to 5 seconds if no target is snared. This will allow you to use the tac to control space and positions such as entry points, cover peak points, and escape paths. If done correctly, every throw can be valuable and at the very least be able to cover spots to eliminate potential enemy peak spots and corners to better watch your back. Aim for the ground at their feet and the walls at them rather than the body of the person. Think about how the terrain matches up with your Arc Snare to avoid throwing to the front side of their cover. It also combos well with grenades and any other legend abilities that fire projectiles or area of effects like a Gibby ult or a Rev Silence. It can be also used to counter the Mirage ult and find the right decoy, as it will only latch to the correct one. When choosing the best time to throw, it will often be when initiating fights. With a 25-second cooldown, you can expect to have it quickly, and if used often, it can be ready again before the fight is completed. When initiating, you can use it to block potential enemy movements so that you have less area that you have to focus on. If you can limit their options, it becomes a valuable tool right away with every throw. When throwing from high ground, you will also have an advantage of easily getting it on the ground of their feet. The Arc Snare can be a super effective tool for disengaging. It's really effective when turning corners, using portals, zip lines, or any narrow pathway. This can be a great tool when grabbing a res, as most players won't want to push into it. More power tips are, you should be anticipating the slow projectile speed of the Arc Snare when throwing it. If you throw it before initiating in the fight, it will be there to blindside them rather than throwing it after an enemy knows you're there and can react to it. 2. Throwing it into windows and small holes can be fantastic and hard to react to. 3. The best time will often be throwing it to the ground right or the left of an enemy healing behind cover. This will be the bread and butter of the Arc Snare. It can be also used on doors, and then opening the door will snare them. It can be used to hold enemies into the storm, and it can be even used at range to provide a slow-moving cover fire projectile, which often makes the enemies react quickly to it. Mistakes to avoid. Don't think just because an enemy is snared that they can't fight back. They have plenty of movement, range, and capability to kill you inside of the snare of the Arc, and the Arc does not hinder their guns whatsoever. In tense endgame situations, don't waste on targets that you don't plan moving against. Although this can be used as a damager in those long campy fights, make sure that you have it when you need it most. We're going to be going into how you can counter the tactical as well as all of Ashe's abilities in a segment later, but for now we're going to be covering something that is really awesome, Ashe's ultimate phase breach. Tear into a one-way portal up to 62.5 meters away. Charge time is 2 minutes, last about 15 seconds. Ashe immediately enters the tear upon activation. This becomes huge for a quick escape or a sudden flank. Though it is clearly audible, it can be missed in a fight, so that does allow for some huge plays. With just a 2-minute cooldown, you can definitely get this in very often, so make sure that you're taking the opportunities as they arise. The big thing I noticed here was making sure that I didn't force any situation where the portal would be just too risky. Make sure you're eyeing proper cover and high ground to use before you make the jump. This ability can be used almost as like a get out of jail free card sometimes. When being overpowered, a quick ult away can be huge. When escaping, make sure that you are always trying to break those lines of sight, and don't forget about covering fire as well as your Arc Snare. In conjunction, Ashe's kit can even rival some of the best Legends get out of jail free cards. Power tips. 1. You can portal into windows and through all kinds of small holes and areas. 2. It does a great job of getting high ground even if you can't see on top of it. 62.5 meters isn't that far horizontally in Apex, but it is much more significant vertically, so don't be afraid to look up at those cliffs. And number 3, it combos well with many other abilities, so don't be afraid to try out a bunch of the combinations like the Revenant combo. A couple mistakes to avoid at all costs. It's very easy to want to flank with a portal, but make sure that you're still portaling around cover. Even when an enemy is hurt, the portal does give the opportunity for the enemy to get ready and be aware of it coming. It can be very easy to get beam coming out of that portal. And also, I don't know why I keep seeing people do this, but don't waste it moving through terrain unless it's to move your team safely to a more advantaged spot or just to escape the storm. Don't be wasting it. Make sure that you have it in these combat situations when you need it most. Now that we have a complete overview on how to best use all of Ashe's abilities, now we can get into some of those more higher level tips as well as how to counter Ashe. It's important to know how to counter the other Ashes as well as what to expect your opponents to start doing on how to counter you. That way you can best counter their counter. Let's back up. First, if you want to counter Ashe's passive, you do have a couple things you can do, and it can be done with any legend. If you remember where you leave all your death boxes, not only does this give you a direct idea where they could be if you see that you get pinged, but you also know where an Ashe team is not based on if you've been scanned or not. You don't get an exact idea because not all teams run Ashe, but this will help in some subtle ways if you see an Ashe team or if you are planning an endgame route in ranked. Countering the tactical has much more options. First, it's a slow and very audible projectile, so basic sound awareness will help you a lot there. Loba, Wraith, Ashe, and Valk all have abilities that can be used to escape. Pathfinder, Horizon, and Valk can use verticality to help minimize the pull. Using zip lines, gravity cannons, or simply falling can also be used to help break the pull as well. If you are stuck with an Arc Snare, oftentimes your best bet is to just pull your gun out and be ready. Get some covering fire and just go straight for those headshots. And oftentimes in Apex, the best way to defend yourself is by shooting all the enemies first. Countering the ultimate can be tricky. It can be easily missed in a fight if there's a lot of gunfire going on, so if you do see an Ashe, keep that in mind. If you witness an Ashe hit their portal, you do get to see where the portal is going to be ending up before they get there, so make sure you do react accordingly and be ready to shoot them the second they come out. Don't be afraid to also chase through the portal if the situation calls for it. I know it can be intimidating, but if they're hurt, a portal and an Arc Snare should not be enough to stop you from pushing in and getting that final kill. But do be wary if they do have teammates that they could be portaling into. For this next part, I wanted to quickly go over a couple key things to note about Ashe. Having a fairly favorable hitbox and strafe, it can be used effectively as a movement legend. Ashe also has some great high-level composition combinations. One really powerful team that I can see quickly becoming meta is Ashe, Gibraltar, and Revenant. All of Ashe's abilities pair well with all of the other abilities on the team. It provides a ton of great value in ranked and in pub stomping all game long. Other great substitutes on this team could be a Caustic instead of the Gibraltar, or possibly a Seer or Bloodhound instead of the Revenant. If you're still looking to improve as an Ashe player, a couple great ways to improve is first by practicing your tacticals in a firing range by using your hip-fire crosshair. It goes in a perfect straight line from the middle. Make sure you're also using your abilities as often as you can. It can be very easy to forget about your passive or your ultimate. And lastly, try landing right beside a hot drop and rotating in early for early game fights. If you're struggling, sometimes it will cause this more passive play and a less confident style of gunfights. And the best way to improve that is just by simple repetition and practice. So don't worry about winning, don't worry about losing, go out there and practice. Overall, I think Ashe will remain a top tier legend for many seasons to come. I think Ashe will be a favorite among the pro gamers and streaming community, although it is very ironic because Ashe does take a little bit more focus on the map than most of the other legends. This will make it a little harder for those Ashe mains that are also trying to read chat to really map everything out and track everything. So there will be a lot of lost value among the community that will be using Ashe. If you guys made it all the way to the end of this very long Ashe guide, I would really appreciate it if you guys could drop a like and subscribe if you found any value in it whatsoever. We will be doing more guides like this one on the channel, so if you guys do want to see more guides, let me know in the comments section which guides you would like to see, as well as any pro Ashe tips I might have missed. Thanks again so much for watching. If you guys are still looking to elevate your gameplay to the next level, check out this video here on the end screen, as it is another high quality tutorial that we have made here on the channel. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I do appreciate it. I'll see you there.